So, Happy New Year or Happy New Lockdown, and welcome back to part 2 of planning an effective website for your business. So, like I say, some of you, I recognise the names, were on last time, and some of you, I think, are new. So I have included a little recap on what session 1 covered. Little introduction about myself. So my name is Deborah Goodall. I run a marketing consultancy called Air8 Marketing, and I provide strategic marketing services and marketing coaching. I've got 25 years experience, more than 25 years experience in marketing, and I'm not a web developer or a web designer. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, what the hell do you know about designing an effective website? Well, I have taken businesses online in those 25 years and have worked with businesses to develop effective websites. And what do I mean by effective? So it's one that achieves your objectives, whether that's sales or inquiries or requests for catalogues or information or whatever it might be. So this webinar is all about structuring your website to deliver against your objective. I've got a background in mail order and direct marketing, which means I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to being able to measure things, and we are going to look a little bit at Google Analytics this workshop. But I've worked with brands such as Ample Bosom, the Great Yorkshire Bed Company. So there's a whole sort of gambit of different brands that I've got experience with. And I'd quite like a lively discussion during the 90 minutes. It kind of keeps it going. So if you do want to take part, that would be quite cool. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of a recap. Like I say, I don't know whether everybody was on session 1 or not. So in 1, we looked at what the purpose of your website was. So why you had a website. Was it lead generation? Was it sales? Was it there just to validate your offer? Can't remember what other people were kind of interacting, suggesting there were. And we also looked at the importance of actually having a website brief, embarking on a process to actually what should be included in that. And we spent time looking at, a little overview of your business, actually what your USP is, your target audiences, which was of your website, but also about the on through the website. So actually, what we use your metric for being able to measure, and how you were actually going to measure that. We spoke about brand guidelines. On session 1, we spoke about brand guidelines being something you could stick on your wall that's on an A4 sheet, rather than a big sort of watching 50-page document that nobody ever refers to. Also to include in your website brief was information about competition. So that would help your developer or designer understand the marketplace. But if you're working on your own website, it also focuses your mind to be able to go through all of this. You would also include any other information, such as geographic boundaries. If your business only operated in the Humber, then that is worth noting down. Stuff around integration with MailChimp or Campaign Monitor and things like that. Inclusion of compliance and legal notices. And then obviously your timeline for the project, because your web developer would obviously want to know what they're delivering against and be able to manage your expectations, shall we say. So hopefully that kind of for today's webinar. We also, remember, looked at the importance of sketching out a hierarchy map or plan, and actually wireframing, so sketching out rough page layouts for the home page and the inner page. And they were there to kind of help communicate with your designer exactly what you're looking for. They weren't so restrictive that they prevented the designer from contributing ideas about what they thought your homepage or inner page should be like. So it's a step are, but also allows them to contribute to that process as well. So did anybody actually
Deborah, can I just say that the sound isn't very good today? I don't know if I don't know if it's my network. I think other people are having problems as well.
I'm also struggling as well to hear you, Deborah.
Yeah, this is Sal here. I'm saying I was just about to type something in the same. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a bit like, for those of you as old as me, it's a bit like the wheel tappers and shunters. I'm getting kind of every third word. Now, Helen, don't laugh.
Okay, so I always describe it as the Norman Collier effect, actually.
Well, yes, similarly.
Probably even older. So when I was having a conversation with Sadia about winning moves.
Could I make a suggestion? Would it be better if we either restarted the session or just however you want to do it, because that was really echoey and we didn't get any of that sentence.
Yeah. So the same thing's happening when you're speaking to me, but I'm trying to get someone from winning moves central. Sadia, are you there?
Hi, Deborah. Yes, it's Sadia from Winning Moves. But apologies, I'm having a bit of trouble hearing you as well. But I think did you want us to see if there's anything we can do about the audio?
Yeah. So we're just discussing, because I can't hear people.
I'm
also,
able
can we
to.
Stop the session?
Sorry, Deborah. If you can hear me, I can hear our participants very clearly. So I expect the audio issue may be at your end, but we can stop session, and if everyone can come back in. Apologies for that, but it might be that we need to try that. Or Deborah, if you want to go out and come back in, it might reset your audio. Perhaps we should try that first.
Okay, I'll leave.
Thank you, Deborah. Apologies to everyone, but hopefully we'll get that sorted as soon as we can.
That's all right. You're very clear, whoever's speaking.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. It's Sadia from Winning Moves. I think Deborah was trying to get my attention to see what we might be able to do here.
I think everybody else is very clear. It's obviously at Deborah's end.
Yes, unfortunately, it's just Deborah.
The main woman.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
Hopefully not while we've got a minute. Hopefully nobody's got any snow. No,
we haven't got any snow.
No, good. I was horrified to see on the news that North Yorkshire it said -11.
Right.
So I was thinking that wasn't that far away. So I was thinking, oh.
Oh, the bus skidding down the road yesterday on the news. That looked a bit scary.
I took my daughter out on her driving lesson yesterday. She's only been driving a couple of months. So we stopped it quite quickly when we got over, because I'm in Driffield. We got over towards Middleton and there's snow on the ground. So I said, right, I think maybe I should drive from now. My handbrake's already feeling like it's going to break. She hasn't had a proper lesson yet because they're all booked up or obviously can't use them. So me and her father are doing it, and it's interesting, but she's doing really well.
Do you feel like you need a set of brakes in the front?
Oh my God. She keeps on saying to me, Mum, will you please stop holding the door and just seat?
Easier said than done.
Are you trying to teach someone to drive?
Yeah. It's yeah, it's not easy to actually explain everything, is it?
No, they do a good job, the instructors.
They do, yeah. But then they've got the brakes, haven't they? So at
Yes.
least they can control it a little bit more. I nearly broke my handbrake once, actually. Luckily, we didn't do a handbrake turn as well.
Should have all been on Carnaby all those years ago. Everybody learned to drive on there. Absolutely.
Well, that's where I took her the first
Yeah.
time. It's great, isn't it, up there on a Sunday? There's nobody there.
It was even better before there was any buildings.
Yeah, I guess. And no roundabouts, I suppose. So, yeah, roundabouts. On her first lesson, she finds roundabouts really scary. But she's only done a couple of traffic lights because we're in Driffield, we don't have traffic lights. So,
No, that's the beauty of living where we all live, because, yes, absolutely. I can see Deborah's back in, so have we got a sound?
I'm back in. Can you hear me?
oh, that's much better.
Yes.
So I can hear you guys now, because you guys were dropping in and out as well. And when I'd initially come on the session and was speaking to Sadia, I couldn't hear Sadia talking. I was saying that I had my volume fully up. So I don't know what happened there. Apologies.
That's much better.
How did you hear anything from what I'd been saying before?
Yes. Yeah, and I think you've got the slides, so it was just recapping on it of what we'd done.
Yeah. And I was just asking if anybody had sort of gone away and gone through that process at all, and what your thoughts were on it.
Oh, I didn't hear that bit.
So did you go away and do anything? And what were your thoughts on the process?
I did a little bit, and I think I've been trying to think since, like, right, I need to think about changing how I've laid it out and make it easier on that home page.
Yeah.
That's as far as I've got, and I thought, right, well, after today,
You crack on with it properly. Yeah. Just also to mention, I don't seem to be able to access the chat. So if you do want anything, just interrupt. Because I can't find a chat box anywhere on the screen. I don't know what's going on. So has anybody got any questions from last time, or anything that they want to share, or that they've learned as a result of taking the information away and getting on board with it?
I have to say that I had on LinkedIn, there was a lady offering a free SEO review.
Oh,
I'm
right.
actually going to put it up on LinkedIn. She's down in Dorset, and she did an absolutely fantastic review. She did it on another of the businesses rather than the one I was talking to you about last time.
Yeah.
Which is really useful, and it would have been even more useful if I'd have known before that I was going to start doing a website for the third business, which is starting this week.
I love that you're so busy, Helen. It's brilliant.
It's ace. No, it's really good. However, it taught me so much about the back end of websites, and
Right.
how it also taught me how I can challenge the designers to make sure that it's going to be optimized properly. And I would very much recommend anyone who wants to get into it. I know, Samantha, you're going to do it, aren't you? Get this free session from this woman. She's fantastic. If you join with me afterwards, I'm Helen Tordoff.
Yeah.
what's that? A free session on what?
It's on SEO, and she analyzes your website. She's a really lovely lady, and she's not, I mean, she's obviously doing it to try and win business, but she's really, really in depth with it, really honest with you, and she'll look at your competitors as well and see where they rank in compared to you, and gives you some really, really good tips. So I would say have a look at that as well, because with your session is brilliant.
I was going to say it will probably complement the stuff that you learn here, and if you are developing a new website from an existing website, then having the website brief, but also then maybe having this SEO audit done and actually providing all that information to your web designer if you're doing a refresh or starting a new site, will probably help massively, because I guess she'll be looking at sort of stuff to do with headers and tags and positioning and stuff.
And what keywords
and all that sort of stuff,
and also the seasonality of the keywords, because she was assessing the accountancy practice, so that was good. She went to Google Eat, what else she did. She told me how slow my site was. She really teared it to pieces, which is what I wanted. But unfortunately for the web developers that's just updated it, it doesn't bode well that they actually know what they're doing, which annoys me.
Yeah.
So she's called Bethany Nash, and she's from Smart Monkey. If I put it in the chat, I know you can't access it, Deborah, but everybody else will be able to.
Are you sticking it on your LinkedIn, Helen? I'll find it off your LinkedIn if you share it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
What's your surname?
It's Tordoff. Tango, Oscar, Romeo, Delta, Oscar, Foxtrot. You can tell I've done that a lot of times because I've had some very, very weird spellings of my name in the past. And I'm double L as well, Samantha.
Yes, I've noticed that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for those others in there, so she's called Bethany Nash, and it's Smart Monkey, and they are just an SEO agency. And she's really passionate about it. She's done some content, sort of linked content in paid content in LinkedIn, and that's how I found her. But she's really good, and it, as I say to Deborah, sorry to interrupt you. It's a really good compliment.
It will, yeah, they will complement each other. So this will be like what you want, and hers will be the technical aspects of actually this bit needs to be right. So which is, like I say at the start, you know, I'm not a web developer or designer, I'm a marketeer. So so I think the two things together will you know really bring people's websites on quite significantly.
And it will also help you if you haven't got a marketing agency to ask them pertinent questions to see if they know what they're talking about, because not every web developer is an SEO specialist.
No, so. They're not. No, that's very true. Some of them have come from a design background, and search engine optimization changes and evolves, and the way that search engines are indexed changes as technology moves on. And so there's now sort of intelligent searching, and they're using kind of AI models to develop how search results come through. So you, sort of like if you're a designer, then you know your design stuff, you don't necessarily know your search engine stuff. So they are completely different disciplines, really. And I would almost argue that actually SEO is probably the toughest bit, you know.
I would say it's the toughest bit and the key to the starting point.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, so from today's session, we're going to
sorry, Deborah, could I just ask, sorry, it's Sal, on your list that you did your recap, could I just ask one? I mean, you don't have to go into it, but what I didn't have time, I was so busy trying to listen to the sound, I didn't necessarily read every line, and I missed part one. Did you cover accessibility?
No, I didn't really. So in session one, no, we didn't really talk about accessibility. Okay. There are accessibility standards. I think it's WWW3 accessibility.
Yeah, that's my area. But from the point of view of just so that I know whether you covered it or not, so that I don't ask silly questions in this session. That was all it was. So if something crops up, I mention it. It won't be kind of.
No, just feel free to interrupt. Yeah, I mean, I do talk about it shortly to do with photography, funnily enough.
Sorry,
tagging photos, but yeah, no, I didn't go into any of the sort of colour contrast stuff, or you know, for visually impaired or anything like that. I didn't do any like that in
language for the deaf, etc. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So today we're going to talk about photography and imagery to create impact and kind of control people across the page. We just touched on that at the end of last time's session. We're also going to do a little bit on words and kind of layout of text. Not in any great detail, but just to kind of get you thinking about actually the copy on the page and people being able to understand what you want them to do as a result of that copy. We'll look at how you are going to measure site performance against your objective, which you set in session one. And then we're going to do a quick sort of sprint through on Google Analytics on where to find key information. What I will say about that is if there is a piece of information that you think you need to know about, or you're interested in finding out and you think it might be in Google Analytics and you don't know where it is, I'm quite happy to switch out of the presentation and into Google Analytics, and we can kind of play about with it, you know, on a shared screen basis. So that you get the most out of this, really. So this is where we finished the last session, when we talked about eye flow and how people generally read on screen in the shape of an F. Which is in contrast to how you read on a piece of paper, where you tend to read in the shape of a Z. So if you think on a piece of paper, you're assuming that you're reading a left to right language, you'll read left to right, you'll read across the middle, and then you'll go left to right again at the bottom, and you'll finish on the bottom right hand corner of a page. And that's what always used to be the hotspot on an advert. So if you were advertising in a magazine and you'd taken the right-hand page, they were always more costly than buying a left-hand page. And then you would always put your call to action in the bottom right-hand corner. I can see Helen nodding. She's obviously, she obviously knows this, yeah. But on a website page or on a screen, what you tend to do is kind of read in the shape of an F. So you'll read across the top, left to right. You'll go down a bit, you'll read a little bit into the middle, and then you'll just go down a bit, but you tend to just scan down that left-hand side instead of actually reading across the page. But what you can do is control where people look with use of imagery. So particularly these two images at the bottom, we've got the lady looking off the screen to the left-hand side. Now, if that was against a piece of text, in all probability, you wouldn't read the piece of text because her eyes are going off the page. But just by flipping that image, you can see that it's much stronger and draws you into the page. So if you had text here, you'd be much more likely to get it read just because she's looking into that page. So obviously this image on the right-hand side is looking directly at you. So that's not controlling where you're looking at all. So when you're placing images, particularly of people, and you can see their eyes, think about where their eyes are sending your reader in relation to actually where you want them to go. So that's where we kind of finished last time. Has anybody sort of noticed any websites that control your eye flow since we discussed this last time? No, might not have gone in so much. Okay, so it's definitely worth bearing in mind though. Okay, so with your photography and image that you use, always consider your audience and context. So the images used on your website should actually reflect your audience and their aspirations. So if you see this screen grab that I've put in on the right hand side here, these are, or they look to be, stock imagery. So whilst they're showing some sort of hands-on ultimate relaxation treatment and physiotherapy, what's kind of missing for me, if I was choosing a physiotherapy treatment, I want to know who that person was delivering that treatment. And there doesn't seem to be any messaging around relaxation. It all looks quite intense, you know. So if this is ultimate relaxation, neither of those people actually look quite relaxed, you know. So there's no, and it's all very, very clinical, you know. And if you're going for a relaxation massage, you'd expect a little bit of colour in the room potentially, or some candles, or some or those stick things that they always seem to burn. I don't know, anyway. You know what I mean? But so think about actually what do those images communicate. So whilst whoever's website this was from might think, oh well, this is, you know, clear and professional and bright and it illustrates exactly what's going on, you know, the customers are going to go, well, that's just a bit slick salesy, not real, not my age group, you know, I don't have a body like that. Are they going to think I'm weird? not our ethnic diversity. So, you know, are they only appealing to a Caucasian audience? So it's really important that you think about your photography from the point of view of your target audience, rather than just take what images are available. Booking a photo shoot doesn't have to be expensive, and sometimes buying stock photography is more expensive than a photo shoot would be. So depending on your business, it could be worthwhile getting a photographer in. If you have a e-commerce site, then I mean, I have never come across an e-commerce site that has too many pictures. You know, if you're thinking about if you're going on holiday somewhere and you're booking a cottage, there's never too many photos to look at, is there? You know, so if you're selling something and you want to sell it well, lots of pictures. You know, so if it's kind of like a direct sell, so trying to sell something right off the page, people will engage with photos much more so than they will with words. You still need the words there, obviously, but you can't, I mean, you can have too many pictures, but you can't really have too many pictures, if you know what I mean. So go beyond the basics, use more images, really sell your stuff off the page. Yeah. And then kind of we touched on this in session 1, was about how photos and imagery reflect your brand and your business. So it's about going back to those brand guidelines that you would have set up after session 1, which I'm sure you all did, and actually think about what you want the photos to communicate and what your target audience expectations are. Like I say, often worth investing into a professional photo shoot. You know, you can quite often get a photographer for between £300 and £400 for a day, and actually thinking about the volume of images you would get from a day's shoot, if you're organised and you have things planned, that is not a lot of money. Always important to think about how images or video will be presented on a mobile. So just linking in slightly with what Helen was saying, one of the things that you get penalised for on search engine optimization is slow loading of a website on a desktop, on a tablet, on a mobile. What you can do is have your site optimized for mobile and actually have it run different images or take video off on the mobile version so that it uploads quicker. So your designer really needs to be optimizing the images for your website. They all want to be resized to the correct size before they go into your website, so that you're not using some jiggery-pokery in the back of the website that auto sizes. They want to be the right size to go in. And you need to think about sort of compressing them without compromising on quality, which again is something that your designer should really get involved in. Don't sort of go with stretching images weirdly, because it will never look good. You know, the resolution of the image will always be compromised if you're trying to make something bigger from a small image. So always start with a big image and go smaller. If your website has a lot of return visitors, then actually updating the photography is quite a good idea, because it helps to keep the site fresh. If you've got people coming back on a regular basis, then actually updating photos can lift the look of the site without having to do a complete new site. And just touching on, I can't remember who was talking about it. Someone mentioned about accessibility. So when you put images into your website, there are things called alt tags, and these are the things that are read as descriptors if people are visually impaired. So it's always good to put your alt tags on there. A, to help with people who are visually impaired. B, it can contribute to your search engine ranking if you get your keywords. Don't keyword stuff, but just think about the words you are using to describe that image into your alt tag.
And could I add, Deborah, if the image actually has no purpose and it's what you would call eye candy, in the sense, if you don't think if you're talking about a visually impaired person, they would prefer it not to have an alt tag.
Okay.
And so there's a huge debate on that, but I would just say most developers think of accessibility around visual impairment because that's the quickest and easiest category. But for us, we've got lots of other things to factor in, and one of the big ones is the deaf.
Okay.
And the language we use is also, if they're signers, they're not necessarily. So there's a whole raft of things around there. Not to labour the point, but just think, if you've got a designer that knows nothing and they follow the guidelines, they could follow them technically, but they wouldn't actually improve your accessibility.
Yeah.
So nuances of accessibility are quite thing, but I can send people a few links to some useful places if you like.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably worth sharing, because I don't really think there's enough awareness about it. I did a little bit of work with I can't remember what the company's called. But they work strongly with visually impaired people who wanted devices for use in the home and stuff like that. And I wish I could remember what.
AbilityNet?
No.
AbilityNet would be the one. Anyway.
No, it wasn't.
Anyway. There are very similar things that Helen mentioned with organisations who will do tests and stuff. And they've got some very expert disabled people who will actually give you your really good feedback. So well,
that's the way we went with. Yeah, that's the way we went with theirs, was actually to do live testing, because it's not something that you can. There are guidelines, but actually what you want is people's experience to be able to do that. So if you are targeting an audience where you've got high percentage of people that are visually or in some way disabled, then it's worth actually engaging with your audience to be able to do that. Yeah.
And it improves the mobile accessibility hugely.
Oh, yeah.
For everybody, not just for disabled.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I know. Well, I'm massively at that age now where I'm looking at my mobile like, I need to be able to make the text bigger. I can't seem to do it on everything. It's just like on some stuff it's bigger and some stuff it isn't. Okay, so we're just going to flip into a bit about your copy and your words. So apparently you've got 8 seconds to make an impact on your homepage. Now, actually, 8 seconds to me seems like a really long time. I don't think I'm ever patient enough to allow myself to look at a website and then have 8 seconds thinking whether it's the right website or not. And I don't know whether that's because I'm a terribly impatient person, or whether this information, which actually came from Google, is outdated or skewed by it being international. You need to get your messages really clear on your homepage or your landing pages, and you need to think, actually, is my value proposition really clearly communicated? And by value proposition, we're talking about reasons to be on that website. So is there impact, and is it clear what you're offering? So as much as we've talked about design, the words have impact too. Yeah. So just a couple of examples of sites that do it quite well. So Sport Pursuit, don't ever register for this site because you end up spending a fortune. It's brilliant. So if you're slightly outdoorsy or want outdoorsy clothes, you're just on there all the time. Okay, so with their website, it's very clear here, it's an outlet. There's up to 70% off. They've got all these little teasers, so a little bits of bite-sized content to take you elsewhere. The key message is that you are going to save up to 70%. It's essentially outlet shopping. That they've got flash sales going on. Stuff's in red. It's discounted. So if you're a skim reader, you don't need 8 seconds to land on this to know actually what's going on. You're encouraged to scroll because there's this flash sales thing just appearing just above the fold here. So if you scrolled on there, you would then see more and more stuff. And you know, there's a strong call to action: shop now. You know, here it is. So in terms of business to consumer, these guys have pretty much got it nailed, really. As in, you know, it's got all the key elements. There's a key message. You're encouraged to scroll. There's bite-sized content. That's these bits here, teasing you elsewhere. If you skim read, you still know what's going on, and your call to action is nice and strong. So outlet here, search, you know, they've got a few call to actions, but actually they're all really relevant and they all work. Okay, and then for business to business, I really like this one. I came across this. I was looking for something else, and this website came up and I wasn't expecting it, but I was like, oh, I'm going to grab that because that's a really good example of a business to business good homepage. So the key messaging, so all across here, so if you think about that F shape with people reading, you've got, you know, engineering, laser cutting and fabrication. Great, I know what they do. Turnkey service from component design to the finished product. Fantastic. Know what all that is. You're encouraged to scroll because they've got this all about experience thing here. They've got little sort of bite-sized content bits going on with over 40 years manufacturing in the UK. I mean, to me, I'd have probably had something across here that would direct you to other pages, but you know. Skim readers, you're going to understand what it is. They're an engineering firm. They've got a brilliant photo, you know, for business to business, where often the photography is, you know, not even on the radar until 10 minutes before the website goes live. They've really gone for it with an eye-catching photo that like makes you stop and go, actually, what is going on there? I like that. They have got a call to action. Again, it's a little bit small. Call us today. I'd have had that a bit bigger, but you know, it's kind of personal choice. And if it's working for them, that's fine. But I think for a business to business site, it's a really good example of it can be engaging. Lots of people with business to business marketing challenges kind of are like, oh, well, I don't know. And actually it can make you stop and go, yeah, you know, this is really good. It's really relevant. It's doing everything that we've spoken about. And it's still business to business, you know, and actually, is there anything more dull than engineering, laser cutting and fabrication if that's not your sector? I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Okay, so when people read your website, so that, I mean, that's just home pages, obviously, but when they're reading your website, people don't read websites. Well, they sort of do, but by 100 words, 25% of your visitors will have aborted and gone somewhere else. By 300 words, another 40% will have left. By 500 words, another 60% will have left. And by 1,000 words, another 80% will have left. So the more words you've got on there, the more people are going to leave. However, there are always people who like reading long copy. So there is this trade-off between short copy readers, so these people up here, and long copy readers, these people down here. So when you're writing for your website, and if you've got an article that is long, think about breaking it up. Get call to actions in, well, I'd be saying well before 100 words, but break up your copy with call to actions. So that might be learn more, call now, buy now, download a white paper, fill out a contact form. You know, there's lots of things that can be your call to action, but break your copy up by putting your by putting call to actions within your copy. Having said all that, the main reason that people don't convert to customers is lack of information. So whilst people don't really like to read stuff, they want to know things. They want to know this. They want to know information about what you're selling or what your service is. So creating action is really important. And sort of information will drive sales. There's always people who want to know absolutely everything. And there's always people who are just like, I just want to buy a TV, but then there's people who want to buy a 30-inch Panasonic curved high density. I've no idea what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. They want the far end of everything. So when you write your copy, think about writing it in terms of features, advantages, benefits, and action. So this is a little bit old school, but actually it still works. So write about the features, the facts about your business, products or services. So things like insulation on a mug. What is the advantage of that feature? Well, it keeps my drink warm. What's the benefit of that? It means I don't have to run up and down to the kettle, you know, all the time. And it keeps me refreshed for longer. And what's the action? Well, the action on something like an insulated mug would be, you know, buy now. But do think about writing stuff in terms of features, advantages and benefits. One of my first jobs in marketing was with a mail order company that sold water gardening equipment. And we used to write the copy for the catalogue, because there wasn't websites back then. And I used to have taped across the top of my computer, so what? So you would write something and then you'd have to think, right, so what? What the hell does that mean? What is the benefit of that to the customer? So what? So what? So what? All the way through until you ran out of actually explaining what that meant. But I always found that really, really good for honing your copywriting skills. Do people write their own copy? There's a couple of nods. People that haven't got cameras on, do you write your own copy or do you get people to do it for you? No engagement. Okay, so when it comes to laying copy out on the web page, especially if you've got a lot of text, the BBC, really, really good examples of this. But then I was on the Federation of Small Businesses website, and I thought, actually, this is really well laid out as well. But the BBC is usually my go-to example. So they always have a really strong headline, so you know what's going on that story. Is it of interest to you? You also have, obviously up here, you know where you are on the website. You've got a subheader, discover the link between physical activity and mental health with UK Active and Minds Guide, which instantly will tell you, do you want to read more about this or not? You've got a summary lead here, which is basically, I suppose it's like an executive summary for a massive report. It gives you the highlights before you start getting into the detail of the story. Then you're into sort of the content. But if you look at all these paragraphs, your English teacher would go mental, because there is like one or two sentences in a paragraph. And I was always taught that you had to have about 10 to 12 lines in a paragraph. But you need to be able to do it into bite-sized chunks so people can digest it, but also so they can read it online. If you think about how you read, if someone sends you an email and it's just all words, I mean, you've no chance with me. I'm just like, I haven't got time to read that. If it's nicely laid out, broken up, bullets, whatever, white space, you know, the line spacing, it can sort of breathe, can all the words, you can see the shape of the words, so you can read it much easier. And then you've got all this like little bits of use of bold here to identify. I presume that links off to somewhere else, to be honest. And then you've got links to related content over here. So it's just nicely laid out, and it makes you want to spend time reading that page, and you don't feel stressed reading it because you're not having to struggle to read those words. Does that make sense? I've got a couple of nods.
I did a course with CIM on how to write press releases. Oh yeah. And after I'd done that, I instantly got my press releases picked up by editors.
Yeah.
Just because you write it for lazy editors who, they haven't got enough time, have they? And you write it little brief bits. Yeah. And there's also different people's reading skills. I know my daughter wouldn't tackle that if it didn't have any lines in it, breaks in paragraph. And I'm starting to get like that now, even with my books. I look at them and I think, oh God, it's a really good book, but I've got 5 pages of chapters without an actual break, and I feel quite panicky.
I look at books now and I'm like, actually the typeface is too small, I can't be reading that.
You need to go to the large section now.
I need to go to the large print section. Yeah, no, it's bad, isn't it? But yeah, no, it is exactly the same with press releases. And when I was 18, 19, I worked on a news desk for a local newspaper on a weekend, and basically I would get all of the press releases, and we used to have this spike on the desk. I mean, you can tell how antiquated all this is, because you know now everything would just come in. Anyway, so you'd have bacon butty in one hand and you'd have all the press releases coming through. And even back then, which is obviously quite a while ago, given that I was 18 and 19, if they weren't laid out properly or they had typos in the headline or sort of that summary lead, I would just spike them, because I was just not interested really in trying to decipher what somebody was trying to tell me. I didn't have time. I was there for like 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and I had a massive pile of press releases, had to open them all. You'd have to unfold them, because this was back in the day when stuff came through, you know, through the post. Anyway, I'm vastly showing my age. But yes, if you are sending out press releases, then this structure will only benefit you, but also think about it in terms of delivering copy on your website as well.
And nearly, sorry to harp on, nearly, probably 18% of the population have dyslexia. They wouldn't be able, as you said, they wouldn't be able to tackle that at all. They'd just go away from the page. Or if they don't speak English as a first language.
Yeah. I think it's so important. Yeah.
And I think the thing that we're all missing, sorry if you're going to come on to this, but because people are now using voice, Alexa, Siri, etc., they need the voices need the spaces to make sense of the language, to hear how they would read. Audio books the same. So it's really important, because you can turn any of these into spoken word, but if they haven't got spaces and paragraphs, then it's nonsensical to try and listen to them.
Yeah. And certainly, you know, just from a reading point of view, having that bit of space, so if you're going to get technical about it, it's called the leading, between the lines, just makes it so much easier to read, because you can see the shape of the word, you know. So never do a headline all in uppercase, because it's too blocky and you can't see the shapes of the words. It makes it really, really difficult to read on a screen. Okay, so that's kind of it on words. I didn't want to dwell too much on it, but I think it's a bit of a sort of, I was reflecting back on the content. I was like, actually, we need to put this in here. Because I do think it contributes massively to the overall feel and effectiveness of a website. If this was a sales page and they were selling something, you would want call to actions in here, breaking it up, you know, learn more, buy now, read reviews, whatever it might be, you know, that would help you make that sale. But in terms of just like a basic structure, you won't go far wrong thinking about stuff in terms of that if you've got lots of copy to put on a page. Okay, has anyone got any questions on any of that so far? No. Okay, please remember, I for some reason can't see the chat, so if you have got a question, speak. No. Okay, so from session 1, I'm hoping that you jotted down whatever your website objective was, and we are going to have a little look about actually being able to measure that objective. So Helen, can you remember what your objective was? I can't think what. I remember your website being. You wanted more bookings?
Yes, that's right. We wanted people to book slots.
Yes,
book slots. Soft play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you know,
and Lorna, jump in if you can remember anything. Sorry, my colleague's on the phone on this call, but she refuses to be seen, but she may be able to be heard if she can remember. Can you remember anything else, Lorna, in objectives? No.
No, she's gone to make coffee. She's not got an insulated mug. So, okay, so if you're doing measurement, obviously we need to know where you're starting from. So what is your baseline? Where are you now? It's great to have some objective, but you need to think about what the situation is today, and then is that objective that you've got in your mind even remotely achievable, or is it just a pipe dream, you know? So for Helen, let's say you're getting 5 slots booked today at the moment, and you might want all slots booked, which maybe would be 30 slots a day, I have no idea, and you want that delivered by the end of the month. So actually you're going to put, it's not going to be achievable, that's not going to work. So we need to know what your baseline is, realistic, kind of like set where we are now, and then look at what your objective is and think, are we going to be able to achieve that? There's no point in setting yourself up for disappointment. We want to achieve that goal. Okay, so but always measure, you know, we always need to know where are you starting from, otherwise we don't know where you're going to go or how you're going to get there. So, so we're just moving on to Google Analytics. It is free. Do people have Google Analytics on the back of their websites? Yes, a couple of nods. Don't know about anybody else. No. Okay, so if you haven't got Google Analytics, it's really easy to set up. Go onto Google, put Google Analytics in, and then you just go through a little process saying that you want to set up an account. It will give you a bit of code that you can pass on to your developer if you have a web developer, and they can drop it in your website. If you don't have a web developer, and say you're using WordPress or something, it's really easy to paste it into the back of your website, and you can, it basically tracks activity around your website, but it's all anonymized data. But you will need to update your privacy policy as a result of putting Google Analytics on your website, so that people know that you are doing it, even though you're not actually capturing any personal information. Okay, so this is kind of what Google Analytics looks like when you go into it, when you've collected data. So it doesn't, if you put Google Analytics onto your website today, it won't, there's not a back catalogue of information that's going to be there. So it goes on, and then you start tracking from day one that you put that code into your website. So once you've kind of got, this is last 7 days data, it shows you on the page that you drop into information about what's been going on. So the number of users. This site's an e-commerce site, so it would tell you what the revenue was, what the conversion rate was, tells you what the number of sessions has been. So sessions are number of times that the website's been viewed. Users are the number of users that have gone to the website. Used to be called hits back in the day. So obviously some of our users are coming back more than once. You've also got this active users right now panel. I've never found that useful, to be honest. A little bit of information about how to acquire users. I don't really think that the landing page that they drop you on is super useful, other than for that quick snapshot. But actually what you want to be doing is thinking about, what's my objective for my website and how am I going to find that information? So for me, you want to be looking at audience and overview for actually how many people are using your website, because that will give you an indicator of whether you're going to be able to achieve your goals. So you might go, we've got so many people using the website, what's our conversion rate? And then that will deliver your bookings. So you've got like a pathway going on. So you can look at users, sessions, or pages per session. So how many pages a user is looking at when they come to your website, and bounce rate is also important. So with bounce rates, this is when someone comes onto your website and just goes on to that page, doesn't go anywhere else, doesn't have a look around, so they go on and off on the same page. From a Google point of view, your bounce rate wants to be as low as possible. Don't ask me what a good bounce rate is, it varies. But what Google wants to do is deliver the user an experience, a good experience. So if they have presented your website in some search engine results, or as a result of a Google ad, or whatever it might be that's driven the traffic to your website, and then people only go to one page and leave, Google thinks, oh, actually, that didn't line up with what that person's expectations were. So we will start and just look for patterns of that happening again, and then you'll start and get penalised. So always try and keep your bounce rate as low as possible. Now on this website, it's nearly 50%. That's not bad. You know, I always think that anything above 50% is probably pretty terrible. I'd love to get it down to like 20, 25%. Don't really know whether that's realistic with this particular website or not. So on this page, think about users, pages per session, bounce rate. It's also worth just keeping an eye on average session duration. So if people are spending like 10 minutes on your website, unless you're a very text heavy website, or you've got lots and lots of information on there, that seems like a really long time for someone to be on your website, and sort of suggests that whatever they're looking for is not in the right place. So just keep an eye on this. So from there, you can also start and get information about the type of people that are using your website. So in demographics, an overview of the age categories that they fall into, gender information, which may or may not be useful, could be useful in terms of developing your website brief going forward for actually who uses the website. But the sort of next step for information to look at is about where people are coming from. So acquisition, all traffic, source medium. So what is driving traffic to your website? And again, this then gives you the opportunity to drill down into these bounce rates. So for this website, people who come across from Facebook are bouncing on and off. But people who come from redbull.com are looking around the website, they're looking at, you know, nearly 3 pages each, whereas the Facebook ones only look at that one page and then disappear. In fact, they're not spending any time on it at all, they're just clicking and going. If you have an e-commerce website, you can then also see what value the transactions are that are coming through those different channels. So that might be one of your objectives, might have been to increase online orders by 20%, and you would then want to know actually what your e-commerce conversion rate was, how many transactions, and what the revenue was that was coming through from those different channels. Because obviously you want to know whether to invest effort into generating either these adverts or editorial or whatever, if you know what the transactional value is coming from those websites. For this website, this is an event, and actually it had sold out back in April, and there's a spike there because that's when the event was taking place. This is obviously 2019 because nothing happened in 2020. That's when the event was taking place, so people would be looking for directions to the venue, and here would be when the photos were uploaded to the website, and all of the post-event editorial started going out. So you can kind of look at little trends like that, and you can overlay it with sense, because otherwise, you know, that spike there, if you didn't know that that's when the event had been, you'd be like, well, why is June the 19th so important? That's just weird. Okay, so the other one to be looking at from a sort of effectiveness point of view for your website is to look at behavior, go into behavior, site content, and the pages, so the actual specific pages on your website, and just look at average time on the page. You know, are people finding the information that they want? Again, bounce rate, you know, are they in and out, or are they then moving somewhere else? And if you are doing, if you have got an e-commerce site, then you can obviously see the transactional value of those pages. If you've got an e-commerce site, it is actually a separate little bit of code that goes in, which again you generate through the Google Analytics settings, and you pop it in on your completion page, so it knows kind of what's been going on. But you can look at the different pages on your website and find out actually what's happening on them, which is really useful. Does anybody who's got Google Analytics go into it in this sort of detail? Yes, thumbs up.
Sorry,
Good.
I was on mute. Yes, incredibly useful.
Good.
Yeah.
And how often do you monitor it?
Depends which site, because I've got 2 or 3 that I'm kind of looking after, and so one in particular I would look almost daily because it's transactional and there's lots of e-commerce stuff going on.
Yeah.
And particularly with COVID, they were very concerned about delays for deliveries and what impact it was making, or whether actually people were increasing looking for different types of products rather than things. So we were kind of trying to second guess the customers' activity, what they were wanting, and we found analytics really useful for that.
Yeah. And what about you, Helen? You were nodding, saying that you use it.
I used it when I was looking at doing the website, but once the website's up and running, I think it should be looked at once a week minimum. I haven't ever had any commercial websites, so it's all been about the traffic and whether we've actually got an increase, do we know who they are, that sort of thing, and we put in the right area. So I would normally go once a week for mine.
Yeah. It does sort of depend on your website and knowing your own business. Ones that I look after, I tend to look at once a month. I mean, certainly with this one, with it being transactional, but I can see all the orders coming through anyway.
Yeah,
and
I mean, if we got to the stage where we had a booking form on our website, then obviously I would be looking at it a lot more often than that.
Yeah.
From a perspective of a B2B company, I would be looking at it if I just sent out a newsletter and seeing if I've managed to get them
to click through
from one place to another. Yeah.
So if you've sent out an e-newsletter, you can obviously get the stats through MailChimp or Campaign Monitor or whatever it is that you use. But often it's worth just checking those against your Google Analytics because they're not always the same. And I always have a little bit more faith in the Google Analytics data than I do through the mailing software instead. So yeah. So having said, because we were just looking at this, having said you want to know what the transactional value is of articles in redbull.com or whatever, so whether it's worth your while, it is important to think about conversion paths. So by this I mean touch points for people with your coming to your website. So they might not buy or transact or send an inquiry the first time they come to your website, and quite often people will look at your website, go away, think about it, come back, go away, whatever that path might be. But within multi-channel funnels and top conversion paths, you can see these paths and what they are, and then what the conversions are. So there's been 5 conversions come through an organic search, so through Google, let's say, or Bing or something. And then they've left, and then they've come back directly, i.e. put the URL in the search bar, and then they've left, and then they've come back on a referral. So that might be an advert, or it might be a piece of editorial that they've seen, and then they've made their transactional purchase. So whilst I'm saying, you want to know what's delivering, sometimes you need to think about the bigger picture in terms of the brand and actually what's going on and the decision-making process. And some of that depends on the cost of the item. It might be that you just buy in like a charging lead for your phone, like, I don't know, like they're £3 or whatever. You probably just organic search, find the website, buy one. Entries to this event are sort of £60. So you're probably going to search, and then you're going to think about it, because 60 quid isn't really an impulse purchase. So there is going to be that slightly longer path. If you are a business to business organisation, then it might be that people will do an organic search. They might be collecting information for, say, someone else within the organisation. That person will then pass that information on, and then they'll come back and they'll want a bit more information. And then they might put something out on, say, LinkedIn. Hey, has anybody worked with these? Or does anybody know anybody that does this, that, the other? And then they might come back and they might complete a form to find out more information. So it's not always as clear as people come to my website and they do what I want them to do. There is this external decision-making process that goes on that you can influence by good design and an effective website, but you don't know actually what's going on within their organisation. So they might have a person doing some research that's passing something on to someone else. They might just be wanting to find information out, or they might pick up the phone. People still do that. Strange though it may seem. Okay, so, and then we've got conversions and goals. So if you've not got a website that's transactional, so by transactional I mean e-commerce, then you can set up goals. So an example of a goal would be, I've got too many goals on here and I need to clear this out, but an example of a goal would be like an email us button, or completion of a contact form, or something along those lines. So we've got contact form on here. And goals are super easy to set up, but it then allows you to track against that original objective of your website. So for Helen's, you were wanting to kind of have these slots booked up, which they did by filling out some sort of form online. So you would have a goal set up for the form, and you would be able to then look at the goals themselves, and actually how you could delve into them in quite a bit of detail in terms of where people had come from that had completed that goal, and sort of the goal flow. So that's the bit that measures what your objective is. If you're not doing transacting websites, if it's not a value, a monetary value based objective, then this is the bit that you need to be in.
Would you ever set, sorry Deborah, but would you ever set up, or is it, I've never done it, but is it possible to set a goal up where, so if somebody's got a blog, would it measure, for example, time length on as a goal? Time length, so your perception is that they've read or stayed on the page longer because it's a longer piece. I don't know whether that would, you've obviously picked that up in other parts of analytics, but I don't know if that makes sense as a goal, if that makes sense.
So for a goal to be recognised, there has to be some sort of action taken. So if you've got a form and people have completed it, and then there's like a thank you notice goes out, so a time spent, dwell time, no, you'd have to look at it specifically.
Yeah. Thank you.
So in terms of creating a goal, just a little screenshot on how to actually do that. So this is the admin bit of Google Analytics. So you're in your admin, you go into account user management, and then you're into sort of the settings bit of it, and view settings, and goals is here, and then you can set them up from there. And again, it sort of generates that piece of code that you just paste into the back of your website. But it has to be, like I say, something that has an action that can be measured. But actually, dwell time on a blog would be quite an interesting. What are you wanting to learn from that?
Well, I think one of the issues is obviously you could look at click-throughs. You could see whether or not people have gone from that page to another page directly. That would, you could look at that. But one of the things is as you said before, it's the length of time, and it's kind of the length of the blog, whether that's got whether it gives you a view on your particular audience as to how long your blogs might need to be more successful. Because sometimes if they're too long, we all know you'd probably lose people, but there might be an optimum side. So anyway, it was just a thought.
Yeah. So there's a copywriter called Drayton Bird, who's some of you might have heard of, I don't know. Anyway, he's a bit of a guru, and he talks a lot about short copy and long copy readers, and your audience will always be a mix of the two. So you should always try and cater for them by breaking up your copy with call to actions throughout. So your short copy readers, they're not interested in reading reams and reams of stuff, but they will read maybe the first 2 paragraphs and then want to jump off somewhere else to find out more information or look at something different. But there's always going to be those people who want to know all the detail about it, so they will just keep scrolling and keep reading, and they will ignore almost those call to actions until they get right to the bottom, and then they're confident that they've got the information that they need, and then they'll click and make their purchase. So I wouldn't worry about having too much, because people will make their own decisions based on whether they're a long or short copy reader. And that's where the BBC is a really good example, because you can read the first 2 paragraphs of a news story and know roughly what's going on, and then they break it up with some journalist's opinion, which drives me mad, in the middle, and then below that they then have a little bit more about the story, the background, the history, you know, why it's important, all that sort of stuff. So you've got this sort of short copy reader catered for opinion in the middle, which is not what journalists are for, and then long copy reader stuff at the bottom. So yeah, okay. Okay.
Sorry to add, but there must be a lot of us that have got a situation where you can't necessarily measure a transaction as a if it's a purchase, because the site doesn't do it. It moves you onto either PayPal or it moves you onto a booking system. So a lot of holiday cottages will go
somewhere else.
So the goal again wouldn't really come into it. Just the fact it's measuring, they're going somewhere else. That it wouldn't show they've completed that transaction, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So with going to another site, if you're going from one page to another site, you could see how many people exited on that page. That could be a goal or a measurement. It might not. It wouldn't be a goal that you would set up, but it would be a measure.
Holiday cottages are a particular good example then. So a lot of them that might use booking.com or whatever.
Yeah.
You could have a goal that says they go from that page, which is your, in inverted commas, booking page, but it transfers you to the external payment system.
So you wouldn't be able to set it up as a goal within Google Analytics, because you haven't got like a completion thing that's coming back, but you could have it as a measure for knowing which page people would be able to then jump to, and if people were exiting on that page, you could start and make some informed assumptions about where they'd gone.
Thank you. I promise I won't ask any more.
No, keep asking. It's good. I prefer it when people get more out of it and kind of interact with it. It's much better.
Kevin's been really quiet. Usually Kevin comes in with stuff. So.
I know, where is Kevin today? He is on this call.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. Normally he's fairly into it. So that takes you. So anyway, so we're back to kind of like just setting up how to set your goals up. Oh, he's there. Here we go.
I'm listening.
Good. So this is kind of like the next bit. You would click there, goals, and then it takes you into this, and you just go new goal, and then it takes you through the process and whether you're recording them on or off. And I'm going to switch all mine off at some point in time, because I don't know why I've got so many set up. But it's an easy process to set up for the actual measurement of goals. But like we were saying, sometimes you've got to think of ways around it for your measurement, but know what your measurement is. So, is there a goal that will measure your objective? Does anybody want to discuss? No.
I think I'll definitely go for the one of the websites, sort of the call to action goal. Have they signed up for a newsletter? Have they filled in the inquiry form?
Yeah.
Actually, when I was updating one of them, they used to have an inquiry form. And I went, has anyone ever filled this in? And they said, no, we've never had anything. And when they were updating it, they realised that it wasn't live. So people could have actually been that website's been up since 2013. And they could have lost so many potential people, because I actually tried it. And I said to the agency, it doesn't actually go anywhere. It just says this page or has expired or something like that.
Yeah, broken links, yeah.
Yeah.
You would have
Exactly.
thought that your website agency who was looking after that would know that it didn't work, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd think that they'd check that.
Yeah, no.
Exactly the same with it was a charity who probably missed out 5 or 6 years of not received. People had filled their forms in it and sent submitted, but actually the email address it was pointing to was the wrong email address that nobody had access to. So therefore, heaven knows how many people had lost. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. You just think, why wouldn't you? Well, anyway. But hey ho.
To me, it's not rocket science, but they seem to try and make it into rocket science. And the agency at the moment had a perfect excuse because he was handed over that website from another agency to look.
Yeah.
So it's very easy, isn't it, to blame the previous agency, but it doesn't actually solve your problem.
No, you just want it sorted out. You just want someone, like, by that stage it's too late, isn't it? You don't need a full inquiry. You just want the situation sorting out. It's like, well, this is my problem, please deal with it. I often find it's like dealing with small children. Anyway.
Yes, yeah. And I did find it incredibly amusing last time when you said timescales, because whatever you give, they won't meet.
No, they won't. No.
In the slightest. I was promised 2 weeks in October to take it to sort of mid-November, and it was delivered to me on about the 12th, 13th of December. So the new one that I'm doing now, I'm going to give them a much more clever lead time. So I'll say I want it by the end of February. Can you deliver? Oh, yes, of course we can. Which means that I'll probably get it by mid-April, really. And it's shocking. I used to work with one and I used to say, look, stop promising me things. Tell me when you're going to get it done, because I've got someone to answer to, and they keep on saying, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? So in the end, I used to tell my boss that it was going to appear at least 2 weeks after they promised it me, so I could build it in. It's frustrating. Why don't people be honest?
Well, So after my sweeping statement that I'd never had one run on time, I'm working on a website at the moment, and due for delivery on Monday, and they're like, it'll be delivered on Monday. And I'm like,
fantastic.
Wow, amazing. So, but some of that comes down to, I have to say, with website stuff, quite often web developers or designers will be waiting for information from the client. And I think on this occasion, the client's been like, right, copy, pictures, what we want, blah, blah, blah. And we've had that process sorted before it even got to the web developer, because we knew it was going to be like very time sensitive. So I take back I've never had one run on time, got one launching on Monday. So keep it all crossed. Okay, so just a little bit on the e-commerce side. If you have got a transactional website, you can actually see what products, by product, quantity, unique purchases, total revenue, average price and average quantity. And again, you can do that sort of by date range. So it gives you a complete breakdown of what's going on your website if you are e-commerce within your website.
I'm going to have to go on to this now, because I've got all these images of what it actually is. And this is sort of something activity based, but it's for men. And I'm thinking, is it cycling tours, or is it tough mudderish type of thing?
It's my other company. It's called Yorkshire True Grit, and we do adventure cycling challenge events on the North York Moors. But we've obviously not been able to. Have you
got it right, didn't I? Just by looking at
the That's when you missed it while we were talking about the snow and stuff.
Yeah.
Because this morning I was thinking, thank goodness my daughter's still not in Helmsley, because it's -11.
Yes.
So, yeah, exactly. And I was thinking there'll be nobody out on the Yorkshire Grit. No, absolutely not.
No, definitely not. So typically we'd have an event running at the end of February. That takes place at night time, and we did actually get it away last year, so we were one of the few events that ran in 2020, but we obviously can't run it in 2021, and then we're debating whether our June event will take place, and we're all like this, like, oh, we might get September away this year, I don't know. So
Like Rider Special Families, the charity ride, that might not happen again. So
yeah, so yeah, because
sorry,
who knows? Oh, Rob Davies organises that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Rob. Yeah. All right, okay. Whereabouts are you based then, Sal?
Well, I'm in Bempton at the moment, but I've spent a vast number of years in Helmsley and surrounding area with my daughter in FSB and everything else. So you'll know her, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Our paths will have crossed. Anyway, okay, so back to this. So transactional websites, you can see what's going on, products, etc., quantity, blah, blah, blah. So that's all good. And the final thing to mention about your new or revised website is your privacy policy. So this is really important. Your privacy policy has to be compliant with the Privacy and Electronic Communications Regulations, otherwise known as PECA. And if you are collecting any personal information at all, then your processes internally have to comply with the General Data Protection Regulations. And it isn't as simple as just grabbing a privacy policy off the internet and sticking it on your website, because it actually has to demonstrate reasons why you're storing people's data and how it's stored and what you're going to use it for and all that kind of stuff. I am not a specialist in this, and my best advice is, for more information, visit the Information Commissioner Office website, and I've put the link in the presentation for you. But this is...
Sorry.
Go on.
How does this go with your cookie policy? Because my agency said that from last December, well, December 20, it was, you had to by law have a cookie policy now.
Yeah, you do. So you have to have, you can no longer have a passive cookie policy. You have to have a pop-up, or you have to actively participate to say that you agree to having cookies put on your machine. That is part of PECA, but you still need to ensure that your privacy policy, so your privacy policy and your cookie policy are different.
Yeah.
You still need to ensure that your privacy policy is compliant. So yeah, but yeah, your agency are right saying that yes, you need to have active participation to ensure that people do want cookies placing on their machine.
Okay, thank you.
There are specialists in GDPR and PECA and whatnot around, but the ICO website...
Oh, what a lovely job they must have.
It's just like, why would you? But it is important that you have bespoke ones to your organisation, because you can't just, like with the old Data Protection Act, you could almost write your own. It was quite loose, but these days you need to be much more focused with what you're including. And that ends today's presentation. Does anybody have any further questions at all?
No, but Kevin's just got his funds for his website, so he's just going to start building his website now.
Oh, brilliant. Good stuff, Kevin.
He put it in the chat, that's all.
Okay.
He doesn't seem willing to talk to us, does he?
No, I can't see the chat for some reason. I don't know why that is, but anyway.
And also there's obviously people in the Grow My SME stuff. There's if it's a new aspect to your business, there's that fund available as well. So one of the people that I'm kind of helping out is looking to get funding to start another website, which will have a small element of e-commerce, but she doesn't want it based on her existing site because it's a different strand to the business and has a different focus completely. So because she's been through Digital Catalyst, she's going for the additional funding, hopefully, to help with the website.
Yeah.
So, well, I think Sadia is going to run through the additional things that are available at the end of his presentation, if no one's got any questions.
No, but thank you very much. It's been great 2-day course.
Good. Thanks very much, Helen. Yeah. Good luck with your websites.
Oh,
There's a
thank you.
message from me. There's a message from Mina. Is it? Sorry, couldn't participate today as I've got a bad connection, but thank you, Deborah.
Oh, okay, thanks, Mina. Thank you for interpreting the chats. Not sure why I can't see it, but
anyway. And Kevin says thanks, Deborah, as well.
Okay. Sadia, do you want to run through?
Yes, yep, thank you, Deborah.
Thank
you for a great session, and we hope that everybody enjoyed part 2 of this the webinar on effective websites. And Kevin, we hope it's quite timely for yourself as you've just received your funding. So we hope you've been able to take some good content away from the 2 webinars. Just before we close the webinar, a couple of things from me. So a thank you to everybody for joining us today, and to let you know that I'm going to shortly launch a poll with a few questions, which will just take a minute of your time. We're quite keen to get feedback on our webinar, so if you could just hold on to answer those, that will be very useful for us. I'd also like to mention additional support that's available for businesses that we're running at the moment. So there's of course a whole schedule of webinars. I'll ensure that everybody's on the mailing list, so I'll check that with the council so that you're receiving notifications of upcoming webinars. There's various topics, various presenters, so we hope that there'll be something there that you will want to sign up to. There's some on the screen there, but there will be more added in as the weeks progress, so do keep an eye out for those, please. In addition to this, we have a support program running, and I know that a few of you have attended previous webinars, so you will already be aware of this. So it's probably more of a reminder from me that we have the Digital Catalyst support program that offers businesses free, independent advice on various digital technology topics. They're really quite broad, so it could be anything from websites to looking at how you might make your finance system more digital, or how you can work remotely better. It's really varied, so it could be anything that you have on your mind that you could come to us with, and we have a wide range of experts with lots of knowledge on the various topics that we can put you in touch with. As I say, it's impartial, it's independent, it's free, so well worth joining, and it takes you through a sort of a 3-stage support program. So we'd talk to you and complete a digital maturity assessment to understand where your business is at the moment. We'd produce an action plan for where things can be taken, and then provide a sort of a 9-hour support program where we work with you to put some of that into practice, and then leave you with an action plan that helps you to identify where further you can go, and also direct you to any further support that's available to help you action that further. So that slide there just demonstrates that in a bit of a nutshell as to how that support program works. But if you'd like to know more about that and how to register and check your eligibility for the support, then please do get in touch. There's some contact details on these slides, and I can share these slides with you straight after this webinar. So please get in touch. There's a phone number and an email address that you can contact us on. Any questions immediately from anybody on that support?
Can I just say, if anybody hasn't done that digital CAS program, it's absolutely superb. I've had the privilege of being in 3, not because I've got 3 businesses, but people have asked me to be a critical friend with them because they're a bit fearful of the technology side of things. And one in particular, I won't mention which business, but one in particular, husband and wife, who are very successful but have never done digital. They've kind of tinkered around the edge, but they've never done digital. And they've obviously started over the last few years, but very hesitantly. And what they've got out of it is fantastic, but it's also made them think completely out of the box about what their new venture is going to be, which runs alongside their very, very successful other business. And it's just brought a fantastic new set of energies to them, and it was amazing. And the quality of the team that William moves on, and I think it was, did you say Edenic? I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but that they brought to it was fantastic. So if anybody hasn't investigated that, it is absolutely worth it.
Thank you ever so much, Sal. for letting everybody know about that. And yes, it's Edenic. They are one of our expert associates that work with us on the Digital Catalyst programme. But no, your feedback there has been extremely helpful. So I think just before we close the webinar, then, if there's no further questions, I'd like to launch the poll. But if you have got any questions, feel free to ask or post them in the chat. And I know Deborah can't see the chat, but I can, so I will share those with Deborah. So I'll launch the poll now. As I say, it should just take a few seconds, really. We've got about 8 questions, I think, in there. And a final thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking part, people.